You did what? Commander Vexel Nara's voice cracked as he slammed his three-fingered hand onto the control panel. The poor ensign in front of him, barely out of the academy, quivered. His scales shifted from a confident blue to a terrified pale yellow. It was just a prank, sir. We didn't think. The stasis pod was scheduled for decommissioning. We thought it would be funny to put the human in there for a few hours, take some holopics, and then let him out, Ensign Toprak stammered, his voice dropping to a whisper. We didn't know the ship would be called for emergency deployment. Commander Nara's breathing sacs inflated to twice their normal size. I stood in the corner of the command deck, trying my best to blend into the wall paneling. As the ship's xenobiologist, I knew I would be called upon soon enough. After all, we were talking about a human, and humans were complicated. So let me get this absolutely straight, Nara said, his voice dangerously calm now. You and your friends found a human tourist at a bar on Proxima Station. You convinced this human to come aboard our military vessel, which is highly illegal. You put this human in a stasis pod as a joke. And then you forgot about him when we received emergency deployment orders? Yes, sir, Toprak squeaked. And how long has this human been in stasis now, Ensign? Toprak looked like he might evacuate his bowels right there on the command deck. About 1,000 cycles, sir. The silence that followed was so profound I swear I could hear the quantum particles shifting in the air recyclers. 1,000 cycles. Commander Nara's voice was barely audible. You are telling me there has been an unauthorized human in stasis on my ship for 1,000 years? Give or take a few decades, sir. I couldn't help it. A small snort escaped my breathing slit. Commander Nara's head snapped toward me, his eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. Xenobiologist Zuri. You find this amusing? I quickly composed myself. Not at all, Commander. I was merely clearing my breathing apparatus. Good, because you are going to wake him up. Now it was my turn for my scales to pale. Sir, with all due respect, a human in stasis for that long, we have no idea what the physiological or psychological effects might be. The longest recorded human stasis was 214 cycles, and that subject required extensive rehabilitation. Commander Nara waved his hand dismissively. Not my problem. The High Council has ordered us to revive the human and return him to Earth. Apparently, this constitutes a major diplomatic incident. Earth. But, sir, Earth is, I trailed off, not sure how to delicately phrase the fact that Earth had become something very different over the last millennium. I am aware of Earth's current status, xenobiologist Zuri. That's why you are going to brief the human before he has any contact with his homeworld. We can't have him causing an interplanetary incident because he can't handle how things have evolved. I nodded glumly. Yes, Commander. When should we begin the revival process? Immediately. Take Dr. Pelkor with you. And Ensign Toprak? The commander's voice hardened again as he turned to the quivering young officer. Yes, sir. You are going to personally apologize to the human after he's been properly revived and briefed. And then you are going to spend the next 10 cycles scrubbing plasma conduits with your tongue cleaner. Yes, sir? Thank you, sir, Toprak said, clearly relieved the punishment wasn't worse. As I left the command deck, I couldn't help but wonder what sort of human we would be waking up. Humans were notorious throughout the galaxy for their unpredictability, their bizarre emotional responses, and their disturbing tendency to either befriend or attempt to mate with any sentient species they encountered. And this one had been tricked and abandoned in stasis for a millennium. I had a feeling this wasn't going to end well for anyone involved. The stasis pod looked ancient. Well, it was ancient by any reasonable standard. The model had been discontinued 800 cycles ago. Its dull metallic surface was covered in small dents and scratches, and several warning indicators were flashing red. How is it even still functional? Dr. Pelkor wondered aloud, his 8 eyes blinking in sequence as he examined the pod's control panel. Military-grade equipment, I replied, running my scanner over the pod's surface. designed to last through anything short of a direct antimatter strike. "Can we see him?" Ensign Toprak asked timidly from behind us. Commander Nara had insisted he be present for the entire revival process as part of his punishment. I tapped a sequence onto the control panel, and the frosted surface of the pod's viewing window cleared. Inside, perfectly preserved, was a human male. His skin was pale, almost translucent, with dark hair cropped short in what must have been a fashion from a millennium ago. He wore civilian clothes, a simple jacket, shirt, and pants that looked comically outdated to my eyes. "He looks so peaceful," Toprak said. "He's in stasis, you idiot," Dr. Pelcour snapped, all 8 eyes rolling simultaneously. "He's not experiencing anything." "Actually, that's not entirely accurate," I interjected, my academic interest overriding my usual restraint. "Human stasis isn't perfect. Their brains still function at a minimal level. Some humans report dreamlike states during long-term stasis. There's even a documented case of a human who learned a new language during stasis through subliminal audio inputs." "Fascinating," Dr. Pelcour said dryly, clearly not fascinated. "Can we wake him up now?" "I have actual patients to attend to." I checked my readings one more time. His vital signs are stable, surprisingly so for such an extended stasis period. I'm initiating revival sequence now. The pod hummed to life, ancient machinery whirring and clicking as it began the careful process of bringing a 1,000-year-old human back to consciousness. The temperature inside the pod gradually increased, and various chemicals were automatically injected into the human system to kickstart his metabolic functions and prevent cell damage. "How long will this take?" Toprak asked, shifting nervously from foot to foot. "About 3 hours," I replied. "Revival from extended stasis can't be rushed without risking brain damage or organ failure." "3 hours?" Dr. Pelcour exclaimed. "I can't stand here for 3 hours." "You don't have to," I assured him. "The first 2.5 hours are automated. You only need to be here for the final medical checks." "Fine. Call me when he's almost ready." "And Toprak." Dr. Pelcour fixed the ensign with all 8 of his eyes. "Don't touch anything. You have done enough damage already." After Dr. Pelcour left, Toprak and I stood in awkward silence, watching the human's vital signs slowly strengthen on the monitor. "So, what was he like?" I finally asked, curiosity getting the better of me. Toprak looked confused. "What do you mean?" "The human. Before you put him in stasis. What was he like?" "Oh." Toprak's scales flushed a slight orange of embarrassment. "He was strange, even for a human. We met him at the Stardust Lounge on Proxima Station. He was drinking alone, talking about how he was some kind of important businessman back on Earth. He kept saying he was closing a deal that would revolutionize interstellar trade." "And you approached him because?" Toprak's orange deepened. "We thought he was funny. Humans always think they are so important, you know." This one was boasting about his connections to the Earth government, how he knew all these important people. But everyone knows humans were barely relevant in galactic politics 1,000 cycles ago. I frowned. "So you targeted him specifically to humiliate him?" "It wasn't like that," Toprak protested. "It was just supposed to be a harmless prank. We told him we were impressed by his stories and wanted to show him our military vessel. He was so excited. We gave him a tour, and then Grexel suggested we show him the stasis pods. We said they were the latest technology, and he wanted to try one out. And he just agreed. To get into an unknown stasis pod on a foreign military vessel?" Toprak shuffled uncomfortably. "We might have given him quite a lot of Rigelian brandy first." I sighed deeply. "You know what the worst part of this is?" "Toprak?" "Not the diplomatic incident. Not the violation of about 50 military regulations. It's the fact that this human is about to wake up and discover that everyone he ever knew or loved has been dead for centuries. His entire world is gone. And for what? So you and your friends could have a Laugh? Toprak's scales turned an ashamed gray. I never thought of it that way. No, you didn't think at all. I turned my attention back to the monitor, watching the human's brainwave patterns begin to show signs of increased activity. Let's hope he's more understanding than I would be in his position. 2 hours and 45 minutes later, Dr. Pelcor returned as promised. The stasis pod was now in its final revival phase, and the human's vital signs were all approaching normal parameters. Any complications? Dr. Pelcor asked, checking the readouts. None so far, I replied. His neural patterns are remarkably stable for someone who's been in stasis this long. Either he's unusually resilient, or what? Toprak asked nervously. I hesitated. Or he was aware during stasis, at least partially. Dr. Pelcor's eyes widened. You mean he might know he's been in there for a millennium? It's possible. The human brain is highly adaptable. If his consciousness found a way to perceive the passage of time, even in a limited way. That's not good, Dr. Pelcor muttered. The psychological trauma could be severe. The pod emitted a series of beeps, indicating the final revival stage was complete. With a soft hiss, the seal broke, and the transparent cover slowly lifted. We all held our breath as the human's eyes flickered open. They were green, startlingly bright against his pale skin. For a moment he stared at the ceiling, unmoving. Then, without warning, he sat bolt upright. How long? His voice was raspy from disuse, but clear and surprisingly calm. The three of us exchanged alarmed glances. How long? He repeated, each word deliberate. I stepped forward. My name is xenobiologist Zuri. You are aboard the Galactic Alliance vessel Nebula Sentinel. You were placed in stasis approximately 1,000 Earth years ago. The human's face remained eerily expressionless. 1,000 years. I see. Sir, I must apologize, Toprak began, his voice quavering. I was one of the officers who... The human held up a hand, silencing him. I know exactly who you are and what you did, Ensign Toprak. Just as I know that's Dr. Pelcor, Chief Medical Officer, and Zuri, Senior Xenobiologist specializing in mammalian species. My scales rippled in shock. How could you possibly know that? A small, unsettling smile appeared on the human's face. I have had a lot of time to think, and listen, and learn. Dr. Pelcor moved forward, scanner in hand. Sir, I need to check your vital signs. Extended stasis can have serious effects on human physiology. The human allowed the examination without protest, his unnervingly steady gaze fixed on me the entire time. Remarkable, Dr. Pelcor muttered. Your cellular structure shows no degradation. Brain function appears normal. Muscular atrophy is minimal. By all medical standards, you shouldn't be functioning this well after such extended stasis. The human ignored him. I'd like to speak with Commander Nara now, he said, still looking directly at me. I blinked in surprise. How do you know about Commander Nara? As I said, I have been listening. The stasis wasn't complete. I have been semi-conscious for most of the past millennium. Your ship's systems speak to each other constantly. Data flows everywhere. After a few centuries, I learned to interpret it. A chill ran down my spine. That's impossible. Human brains can't interface directly with our ship systems. A lot of things are impossible until they happen, the human replied with that same unsettling smile. Now, please inform Commander Nara that Jason Bright would like to speak with him. Jason Bright? That's your name? Toprak asked. The human Jason Bright finally turned his gaze to the ensign. Yes. The name of the funny human you decided to lock away and forget about? I suggest you remember it, Ensign. We are going to be seeing a lot of each other. Toprak's scales turned a sickly pale yellow again. We are? Oh yes, Jason said, swinging his legs off the stasis pod with surprising agility. I have made plans for all of you. 1,000 years gives you a lot of time to plan. Commander Nara was not pleased to be summoned to the medical bay, but his curiosity overrode his annoyance. I watched as he entered, his posture rigid with the formality typical of a commander addressing a potential diplomatic incident. "Mr. Bright, I am Commander Vexil Nara. On behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I offer our most sincere apologies for the incident that resulted in your extended stasis." Jason Bright stood before the commander, looking remarkably composed for someone who had just woken up after 1,000 years. He had refused the medical gown we'd offered and instead wore his original clothes, now comically outdated but still in perfect condition thanks to the stasis preservation. "No apology necessary, Commander," Jason replied smoothly. "What's a millennium between friends?" Commander Nara's breathing sacs fluttered in surprise at the human's casual tone. Well, that's very understanding of you, Mr. Bright. We are currently en route to the nearest Galactic Alliance outpost, where arrangements will be made to transport you to Earth, or wherever you wish to go. The Alliance will, of course, provide significant compensation for your ordeal. "I don't want to go to Earth," Jason said flatly. This caught everyone by surprise. "But Earth is your homeworld," I said, stepping forward. Jason turned those unnervingly bright green eyes on me. "Earth hasn't been anyone's homeworld for over 300 years, xenobiologist Zuri. Not since the Great Migration. Humanity is scattered across 57 colony worlds now. Earth is a preserved historical monument with a small scientific outpost." My jaw dropped open. "How could you possibly know that?" "I told you. I have been listening. Your ship receives news broadcasts, historical updates, crew messages. I have had a millennium to absorb it all." Commander Nara looked deeply disturbed. "Mr. Bright, if what you are saying is true, it represents a significant security breach. Our ship's internal communications are encrypted. Encryption becomes meaningless when you have 1,000 years to break it," Jason replied with a shrug. "But that's not important right now. What matters is what happens next." "And what is that, exactly?" Commander Nara asked warily. "I want to join your crew." The silence that followed was absolute. "That's not possible," Commander Nara finally said. "You are a civilian. A human civilian. This is a Galactic Alliance military vessel." "Actually, it is possible," Jason countered. "Under Galactic Alliance Regulation 347B, any sentient being who provides significant aid or service to a Galactic Alliance vessel may be granted provisional crew status at the discretion of the commanding officer. I just need to provide you with something valuable enough to justify my inclusion." Commander Nara looked stunned. "You know our regulations too?" "I know everything about this ship, Commander, including the fact that your quantum navigation system has been miscalibrated for the past 37 years, causing a 0.002% efficiency loss in your faster-than-light jumps." Dr. Pelcour snorted. "That's ridiculous. Our navigation systems are checked regularly by technicians using standardized calibration tools that are themselves miscalibrated," Jason replied without missing a beat. "The error is small enough to go unnoticed but compounds over time. I can fix it." Commander Nara's eyes narrowed. "And why should I believe you?" "You shouldn't," Jason said with a smile. "You should verify. Have your best technicians check the quantum resonance patterns against absolute vacuum standards, not their calibration tools. They will find I'm right." Commander Nara stared at the human for a long moment before tapping his communication device. "Engineering, this is Commander Nara. I need a Level 1 diagnostic on the quantum navigation system. Check resonance patterns against absolute vacuum standards." He paused. "Yes, I know that's not standard procedure. Do it anyway." While we waited for the results, an uncomfortable silence filled the medical bay. Jason seemed perfectly at ease, looking around with interest as if he were a tourist rather than a victim of an extended stasis prank. "Why would you want to join our crew?" I finally asked. "After what happened to you?" "Why not?" Jason replied, turning that unsettling gaze on me again. Everyone I knew is long dead. My entire civilization has transformed beyond recognition. This ship has been my home for 1,000 years, even if I was unconscious for most of it. Besides, he added with a small smile, I have developed something of an attachment to you all. Before I could respond, Commander Nara's communication device beeped. He listened intently for a moment, his expression growing increasingly shocked. Thank you, Chief Engineer. Implement the necessary calibration adjustments immediately. He disconnected and looked at Jason with new respect and wariness. You were right. The quantum resonance patterns were off by exactly the percentage you specified. Jason nodded, unsurprised. That's just the beginning, Commander. I know about the microfracture in the port plasma conduit that your sensors haven't detected yet. I know that your communications array could be optimized to increase range by 17%. I know that Ensign Toprak has been selling restricted stimulants to the night shift crew. Toprak made a choking sound, his scales turning a guilty orange. Mr. Bright, Commander Nara said slowly, if even half of what you are claiming is true, you could indeed be a valuable addition to this vessel. But I must ask, what exactly are your intentions here? Revenge for what was done to you would be understandable. Jason's expression became serious for the first time. Revenge is a waste of energy, Commander. I'm not interested in punishing anyone for something that happened 1,000 years ago. What I want is purpose, meaning. I have spent a millennium as a forgotten joke, but now I want to matter. And you think joining our crew will give you that? I know it will. Jason's voice was filled with quiet conviction, because I have seen the threats that are coming. In my 1,000 years of listening, I have pieced together patterns in your intelligence reports, scientific data, and encrypted communications. There's something happening at the edge of the Andromeda galaxy that your analysts haven't connected yet. Something that threatens not just humanity, but all sentient life. Commander Nara's breathing sacs inflated in alarm. What are you talking about? Jason leaned forward, his green eyes intense. Commander, I need access to your ship's full database and communication with Alliance intelligence. Give me that, and I can show you what's coming. I can help you prepare. This is absurd, Dr. Pelquor interrupted. The human is clearly suffering from stasis-induced delusions. Extended isolation, even in a semi-conscious state, can cause paranoia and false pattern recognition. Jason didn't even glance at the doctor. The void convergence, Dr. Pelquor. That's what your own scientists called it in a classified report 18 years ago. Unexplained dark matter concentrations at coordinates 227894335. Synchronized quantum fluctuations that defy all known laws of physics. The report was buried because no one could explain it. But I have had time to think about it. A lot of time. Dr. Pelquor's 8 eyes blinked rapidly in shock. How could you possibly know about that report? It was classified at the highest levels. As I said, Jason replied calmly, encryption becomes meaningless given enough time. Commander Nara was silent for a long moment, studying the human with new intensity. Finally, he straightened his posture and made a formal gesture of acceptance. Jason Bright, under Galactic Alliance Regulation 347B, I hereby grant you provisional crew status. You will be assigned quarters and limited access to ship systems pending further evaluation. Thank you, Commander, Jason said with a nod. Don't thank me yet, Commander Nara warned. You will be under constant supervision. Any attempt to access restricted systems without authorization will result in immediate confinement. I understand completely, Jason replied, that small smile returning to his face. As Commander Nara left to make the necessary arrangements, I found myself alone with the strange human. His calm demeanor was unnerving, as was the depth of knowledge he claimed to possess. You are not what I expected, I admitted. Jason raised an eyebrow. What did you expect? A raving lunatic? A vengeful human bent on destroying those who wronged him? Something like that, yes. He laughed, the sound oddly normal after all the strangeness. 1,000 years of solitude changes a person. Xenobiologist Zuri. You learn patience. Perspective. The long view. And what is the long view exactly? I asked, curiosity overwhelming my caution. Jason's smile faded, replaced by an expression of profound seriousness. Survival. Not just mine or humanity's, but all sentient life. The universe is about to change, Zuri. I have spent a millennium preparing for it. And now, finally, I can act. As he spoke those words, I felt a chill run down my spine. There was something in his eyes, a certainty, a purpose, that made me wonder if waking Jason Bright might prove to be far more consequential than any of us could possibly imagine. The human who had been forgotten for 1,000 years was awake now, and he had a plan. You would think having a 1,000-year-old human join our crew would cause more disruption, but Jason Bright integrated himself with disturbing ease. Within days, he'd established a routine, familiarized himself with the ship's current systems, and even started developing relationships with key crew members. I found him in the engineering bay on his 5th day aboard, surrounded by holographic displays showing what appeared to be quantum calculations far beyond my comprehension. Chief Engineer Loxar stood beside him, her usual scowl replaced by an expression of fascinated respect. The recalibration improved efficiency by 4.7%, she was saying as I approached. That's unprecedented for a system this old. It's just the beginning, Jason replied, his fingers dancing through the holographic numbers. If we modify the intake manifolds as well, we could reach 8%. Loxar noticed me hovering at the entrance. Xenobiologist Zuri, your human is a genius. He's not my human, I protested automatically. Jason glanced up, those unnervingly bright green eyes finding mine. Actually, Commander Nara officially assigned me to xenobiology for supervision. So technically, I am your human. I flicked my tail in annoyance. Commander Nara wants to see you. Both of you, actually. Loxar immediately saved their work and straightened her uniform. Did he say what it's about? The void convergence, I replied, watching Jason carefully. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those green eyes. Satisfaction, perhaps. So he's finally taking it seriously, Jason murmured. You say that like you expected it, I noted as we made our way to the command deck. Of course I expected it. The evidence is irrefutable once you know where to look. He spoke with the casual confidence of someone stating an obvious fact, like the color of a star or the number of moons orbiting a planet. And you just happen to know where to look after spending 1,000 years in stasis? Jason's lips quirked in that small, unsettling smile that never quite reached his eyes. Not by happenstance, Zuri. By necessity. When your consciousness floats in the void for a millennium, pattern recognition becomes more than a skill. It becomes survival. Before I could press further, we arrived at the command deck. Commander Nara stood at the central holographic display, his posture rigid with tension. Around him were gathered the ship's senior officers, including Dr. Pelcour, who still regarded Jason with open suspicion. Ah, good. You are here, Commander Nara said when he spotted us. Mr. Bright, I have reviewed the data you provided regarding the void convergence. Alliance intelligence has confirmed several of your observations. But not all of them, Jason noted calmly. No, not all. The commander gestured to the holographic display, which showed a section of the Andromeda Galaxy. The dark matter concentrations you identified are real, as are the quantum fluctuations. But your predictions about their significance and potential threat level are speculative. They are not speculations, Commander. They are calculations based on a millennium of observation. Dr. Pelcour snorted. Observation from inside a stasis pod? With no instruments or data collection capabilities? Jason turned those unsettling eyes on the doctor. The ship was my instrument, Doctor. Every system, every sensor, every transmission, all flowing through networks I learned to perceive. Given enough time, Even the smallest data points form patterns. Regardless, Commander Nara interrupted. Alliance Command has taken your warning seriously enough to order us to investigate directly. We are changing course for the coordinates you provided. A ripple of surprise went through the assembled officers. I felt my own scales shift color in shock. We are going to the edge of Andromeda? That's a 3-month journey, even at maximum FTL. 2 months, Jason corrected. If we implement the navigation optimizations I suggested. Commander Nara nodded. Which we have. We depart in 6 hours. I expect all departments to be prepared for extended deep space operations. He looked directly at Jason. Mr. Bright, you will continue to work with Chief Engineer Loxar on further system optimizations, and you will report any new insights directly to me. Of course, Commander, Jason replied with perfect military deference that somehow still managed to sound faintly mocking. As the meeting disbanded, I fell into step beside Jason as we left the command deck. You seem pleased with yourself, I observed. Why wouldn't I be? The commander is taking the threat seriously. That's all I wanted. Is it, though? I asked, studying his alien face for any clue to his true motivations. You went from forgotten Stasis joke to valued crew member with alarming speed. Now you have convinced our commander to take a military vessel to the edge of a galaxy based on your perceptions. That's quite an achievement for someone who should be suffering from severe psychological trauma. Jason stopped walking and turned to face me, his expression suddenly serious. You think I'm manipulating all of you, or that I have some hidden agenda? It wasn't a question. The thought had crossed my mind, I admitted. Good. To my surprise, he smiled. You should be suspicious. It's the rational response. A stranger appears with impossible knowledge and warnings of cosmic doom. I'd be suspicious too. And yet you expect us to trust you. I don't expect trust, Zuri. I expect verification. Every claim I have made can be tested. Every prediction can be observed. I'm not asking for blind faith. What are you asking for, then? His green eyes seemed to look through me, beyond me, the chance to prevent extinction. Not just human extinction, all sentient life. That's quite the hero complex you have developed in Stasis, I said dryly. Jason laughed, the sound startlingly normal after such ominous words. It's not heroism, it's pragmatism. If sentient life is extinguished, who would be left to appreciate my brilliance? Despite myself, I felt my mouth flaps twitch in amusement. At least your millennium in isolation didn't damage your ego. On the contrary, it inflated it to cosmic proportions. He resumed walking. Come on, I need to run some calculations in the xenobiology lab. Your equipment has certain advantages over engineering's. As I followed him, I couldn't shake the feeling that despite his openness, despite his verifiable predictions, Jason Bright was still keeping secrets. And I was determined to discover what they were. 2 weeks into our journey toward the edge of Andromeda, Jason had become an accepted, if still mysterious, member of our crew. His knowledge of ship systems proved invaluable, his predictions consistently accurate. Even Dr. Pelcour had grudgingly admitted that the human's understanding of xenobiological principles was impressive. But I remained troubled. There was something too perfect about Jason's integration, too convenient about his endless knowledge. And so, while he slept, or appeared to sleep, at least I began my own investigation. I started with the stasis pod. The ancient technology had been moved to a storage bay after Jason's revival, forgotten once again. But I hadn't forgotten. If Jason had truly been conscious enough during stasis to absorb and interpret ship data, there should be evidence in the pod's systems. The computer, display all activity logs for Stasis Pod Unit 47B for the past 1,000 cycles, I instructed as I connected my datapad to the pod's antiquated interface. No activity logs available for specified time period, the computer responded. I frowned. Display most recent activity log. Most recent activity log dated Galactic Standard Date 3472.89. Intent, Manual override of sensory isolation protocols initiated. My scales rippled in surprise. GSD 3472.89 was just days after Jason had been placed in stasis. And someone had disabled the sensory isolation protocols, the very systems designed to keep a stasis subject completely unconscious. Computer, identify user who initiated override. User identification, Ensign Grexel Toprak. So Toprak and his friends hadn't just put Jason in stasis as a prank. They deliberately altered the settings to ensure he remained partially aware. 1,000 years of semi-conscious isolation. The cruelty of it made my breathing sacs constrict in horror. Find something interesting? I nearly jumped out of my scales. Jason stood in the doorway of the storage bay, watching me with those unsettling green eyes. I was just checking the pod systems, I stammered, feeling inexplicably guilty despite being the one who'd uncovered the true crime against him. And now you know, he said quietly, walking toward me. They didn't just forget me. They made sure I'd be aware enough to know I was forgotten. Jason, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. His voice held no accusation, which somehow made it worse. It was 1,000 years ago. Toprak was just a foolish ensign following his friend's lead. Grexel was the truly cruel one. Grexel? The name in the logs? Jason nodded. He was always fascinated by human psychology. He wanted to see what extended isolation would do to our minds. His lips twisted in a humorless smile. I suppose I was his experiment. I felt sick. We should report this to Commander Nara. This changes everything. What they did to you was torture, not a prank. It doesn't change anything, Zuri. Jason stepped closer, putting a hand on my arm. The warmth of it startled me. I sometimes forgot humans were endothermic. Grexel has been dead for centuries. Toprak has suffered enough. And I... He paused, looking past me at the stasis pod. I survived. I adapted. I transcended. Transcended? I repeated, uneasy at his choice of word. Perhaps that's too grandiose, he conceded with a small smile. Let's just say I made the best of my situation. He looked down at my datapad, still connected to the pod. Find anything else interesting? I hesitated. The pod's neural interface shows unusual activity patterns, almost like it was being used to amplify brain function rather than suppress it. Clever observation. Jason seemed genuinely impressed. The stasis field created a quantum loop in my neural patterns. My thoughts weren't constrained by normal temporal limitations. I could follow a single thought for decades, exploring every possible permutation. That's not how stasis fields work, I protested. Not normally, no, but the combination of the damaged field harmonics and the disrupted sensory protocols created something new. His eyes took on that distant look again. 1,000 years of thought, Zuri. Can you imagine what that does to a mind? Before I could answer, his communication device beeped. He checked it and frowned. Commander Nara wants to see me. We will continue this conversation later. As he left, I stared at the ancient stasis pod with new understanding and dread. If what Jason said was true, if his mind had truly been active for a millennium, unconstrained by normal thought patterns, then who or what had we really awakened? We have detected something, Commander Nara announced as soon as Jason and I entered the command deck. I had intercepted Jason on his way to meet the commander, my curiosity overwhelming my usual respect for chain of command. Already? Jason asked, looking surprised for the first time since I'd met him. We are still 5 weeks from the coordinates. And Commander Nara gestured to the main display. It's moving toward us. Fast. The holographic display showed a bizarre distortion in space, a rippling darkness that seemed to bend light around it. It was roughly cylindrical in shape, approximately the size of a small moon, and moving at incredible speed. That's impossible, Chief Science Officer Vexa whispered, her tendrils writhing in agitation. Nothing can move that fast outside of FTL corridors. Nothing we know of, Jason corrected, stepping closer to the display. He studied it with intense focus, his expression unreadable. Magnify Section 4B. The commander nodded to the sensor operator, who complied. The image zoomed in on a section of the strange object. At this magnification, we could see that its surface wasn't solid but composed of billions of tiny shifting particles, each moving independently, yet maintaining the overall cylindrical shape. "It's beautiful," Jason murmured. "It's heading directly toward populated space," Commander Nara countered grimly. "Current trajectory puts it on course for the Orion Spur in approximately 7 months. The heart of human space," I realized aloud. "Not just human space," Jason corrected without taking his eyes off the display. "The Orion Spur contains colonies from 17 different species, over 40 billion sentient beings." Commander Nara's breathing sacs inflated with tension. "The Alliance Command has ordered us to attempt communication and gather as much data as possible without engaging. If this object is artificial, we need to determine its intentions." "It's not artificial," Jason said quietly. "At least, not in the way you are thinking. And it doesn't have intentions. It has hunger." The command deck fell silent as all eyes turned to Jason. "You know what this is," Commander Nara said. It wasn't a question. Jason finally turned away from the display, meeting the commander's gaze. "I have a theory. The void convergence isn't a natural phenomenon or a weapon. It's an entity. A predator. And it's awakening after billions of years of dormancy." "A predator the size of a moon?" Dr. Pelcor scoffed. "Preposterous. No biological organism could reach that scale." "Who said anything about biological?" Jason countered. "Life doesn't have to be carbon-based or cellular to exist. This entity is composed of dark matter and quantum particles, existing partially outside our dimensional framework. It feeds on energy, specifically the energy produced by complex technological civilizations." That's just speculation," Dr. Pelcor spluttered. "Is it?" Jason turned to Commander Nara. "Order a deep scan of the astronomical records for the Andromeda Galaxy over the past 10,000 years. Look for civilizations that suddenly went dark, for stars that dimmed inexplicably." The commander hesitated, then nodded to his science officer. "You'd do it." As Vexi worked, an uncomfortable silence fell over the command deck. I found myself standing closer to Jason, drawn by both fear and fascination. "You predicted this," I said quietly. "You knew we'd find it before reaching the coordinates." "I calculated probabilities," he corrected, "based on its last known feeding pattern and dormancy cycle." "And you didn't think to mention this earlier?" He gave me that unsettling smile again. "Would you have believed me if I'd told you we were hunting a cosmic predator that eats civilizations? Sometimes evidence must precede theory." Before I could respond, Vexi looked up from her console, her tendrils pale with shock. "Commander, I have found something. In the past 12,000 years, 27 advanced civilizations in Andromeda have experienced unexplained technological collapse, all within a moving pattern that," she swallowed, "that matches the trajectory of this object." The Commander Nara's scales paled. "Send everything to Alliance Command. Immediately." He turned to Jason. "What do you suggest, Mr. Bright?" "We can't fight it, not directly, but we can redirect it." "Redirect a moon-sized cosmic predator?" I asked incredulously. Jason nodded. "It's attracted to concentrated energy emissions. If we can create a more appealing target of false civilization broadcasting enormous energy signatures, we might be able to divert it from populated space. That would require generating energy signatures equivalent to billions of fusion reactors," Chief Engineer Loxer objected. "We don't have that capability." "No, but we don't need the actual energy. Just the signature." Jason turned to the commander. "I need access to your quantum communication array. With modifications, we can create phantom energy signatures that will appear real to the entity's senses." Commander Nara studied Jason for a long moment before making his decision. "Do it. Whatever resources you need." As the command deck burst into activity, I pulled Jason aside. "You have been planning this all along," I accused in a whisper. "Since the moment you woke up." His expression softened slightly. "Not just since I woke up, Zuri. For centuries before that. Why do you think I was so calm about being trapped in stasis for a millennium? I knew when the void entity would awaken. I knew humanity would need to be ready. Everything has been leading to this moment. But why you? Why was it your responsibility?" Something ancient and weary flickered in his eyes. "Because no one else could do it. No one else had the time to understand. 1,000 years of thinking. Zuri. 1,000 years of calculating." The cosmic joke played on me by Ensign Toprak and his friends may have inadvertently saved billions of lives. I stared at him, finally beginning to understand the true scope of his plan. "You are going to use yourself as bait, aren't you? That's why you need the quantum array." His silence was answer enough. 3 days later, I found Jason in the ship's observation lounge, staring out at the stars. We were holding position at a safe distance from the approaching void entity, which was now visible to the naked eye as a dark smudge against the starfield. "The modifications to the quantum array are complete," I said, joining him by the viewport. "Loxar says it's ready whenever you are." He nodded without looking away from the stars. "Thank you, Zuri, for everything. I haven't done anything except watch you manipulate this entire ship's crew into position for your grand plan." That earned me a small smile. Is it manipulation if the goal is mutual survival? It's still manipulation, just with good intentions. Fair enough. He finally turned to face me. "What gave me away?" "Many things. Your knowledge was too perfect, too convenient." And then I found records of a Jason Bright in Earth's historical archives. A quantum physicist who disappeared under mysterious circumstances in 2389. "Except you weren't just a physicist, were you?" "No," he admitted. "I was working on something else. Something secret. Time manipulation," I said quietly. "You were researching ways to send consciousness through time." His eyebrows rose in surprise. "Very good, xenobiologist Zuri. I underestimated you. You weren't put into stasis as a joke at all, were you? You arranged the whole thing. You needed the stasis field to stabilize your consciousness while you projected it forward in time." Jason's smile widened. "I needed to see if my calculations were correct. If the void entity would truly awaken in our time. I couldn't be certain based only on historical patterns. So you used Toprak and his friends, and made yourself a target for their cruel prank. They didn't need much encouragement. Just a drunk human boasting too loudly in a bar frequented by bored military personnel." He shrugged. "They did the rest themselves. But 1,000 years you couldn't have known they'd forget about you for so long." "That was luck," he admitted. "Or fate, if you prefer. I had expected perhaps a few years of observation before being revived. The emergency deployment was unexpected, but ultimately fortuitous. It gave me far more time to understand the void entity than I'd hoped for." "And now you are going to sacrifice yourself to save everyone." I couldn't keep the accusation from my voice. "It's the logical solution. My consciousness needs to guide the phantom energy signatures, adapt them as the entity responds. A simple program wouldn't be sufficient. There must be another way." He placed a hand on my shoulder, that strange human warmth seeping through my scales. "There isn't, Zuri. I have had a millennium to consider alternatives. This is the only way with a probability of success above 67%. That's still a 1 in 3 chance of failure, better odds than anyone else has offered." He glanced at his communication device. "It's time. Commander Nara is waiting for us in the shuttle bay." As we walked through the ship's corridors for the last time, I found myself struggling with emotions I couldn't quite identify. This strange human had entered our lives just weeks ago, yet somehow had altered everything. It had known everything, planned everything. "Will you feel it?" I asked abruptly. "When the entity consumes the energy signature." I don't know, he answered honestly. My consciousness will be distributed throughout the phantom energy field. Perhaps I will experience one final moment of transcendence before dissolution. Or perhaps it will be like falling asleep. We reached the shuttle bay where Commander Nara and the senior officers waited. The modified shuttle sat ready, its systems humming with the quantum technology Jason had designed. Mr. Bright, Commander Nara said formally. On behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I extend our deepest gratitude for your service and sacrifice. Jason nodded acknowledgement. Just make sure the histories record what really happened, Commander. Not the joke that went wrong, but the plan that went right. I give you my word. As Jason turned to board the shuttle, I stepped forward impulsively. Wait. I still don't understand. Why go to all this trouble? Why sacrifice everything? He paused, those green eyes finding mine one last time. Because civilization is worth saving, Zuri. All civilizations. And besides, he added with that small smile that finally reached his eyes, I have already lived far longer than any human was meant to. 1,000 years of thought is enough for anyone. Without another word, he boarded the shuttle. We all watched on the command deck display as it launched, accelerating toward the approaching darkness. At precisely the calculated distance, the shuttle activated its modified systems, creating a bloom of phantom energy signatures that spread out like an artificial galaxy. The effect on the void entity was immediate and dramatic. It changed course, drawn irresistibly toward the seemingly endless feast of energy. As it approached the phantom field, the shuttle at the center began broadcasting a new signature pattern, one that would lead the entity away from populated space, toward the empty void between galaxies. It's working, Vexa whispered, her tendrils coiling in relief and awe. The entity is following the path. On the communication channel, Jason's voice came through clearly. Phantom field stable. Entity fully engaged. Beginning phase 2 trajectory adjustment. You have done it, Mr. Bright, Commander Nara said, his voice thick with emotion uncharacteristic for our species. We have done it, Commander, Jason corrected. And Zuri? Thank you for your suspicion. It kept me honest. I couldn't speak past the tightness in my breathing sacs. I watched as the shuttle, now barely visible at the center of the enormous phantom energy field, began its long journey toward intergalactic space, leading the cosmic predator away from billions of innocent lives. Transmission ending, Jason's voice said calmly. Long live sentient life. The communication channel went silent. On the display, we could see the void entity following the phantom field, already beginning to turn away from its original course toward populated space. He did it, Dr. Pelcor said, all 8 eyes wide with wonder. The human actually did it. No, I corrected softly, watching until the last trace of the shuttle disappeared from our sensors. A human did it. The one we put in stasis as a joke. The one who woke up with a plan. Commander Nara placed a hand on my shoulder. Some might call it destiny. Xenobiologist Zuri. I shook my head. Jason wouldn't. He'd call it calculation, probability. The logical solution. Perhaps the commander conceded. But I prefer to think that even in a universe vast enough to contain cosmic predators and quantum consciousness, there's still room for something as improbable as a hero. As our ship turned to begin its long journey home, I found myself remembering something Jason had said during one of our conversations. The universe doesn't care about justice or fairness. It cares about balance. The cruel joke that had imprisoned him had ultimately given him the insight needed to save us all. The balance, it seemed, had been restored. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, a consciousness that had thought for 1,000 years continued its final journey, leading death away from life, guided by a plan a millennium in the making.